Well, hi. Hello there. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Tabitha Gabrielle, and today I'm going to be taking you on my adventures. I'm going to be taking you on my adventures with my first ever independent stained glass project. It was so much fun, but do keep in mind that I'm a beginner. So be nice in the comments, okay? I'm a beginner. I realize they're mistakes, but you know what? Mistakes add character. So, with that little disclaimer getting out of the way, let's get into it. But hold up, wait just a second. Before we get into the meat of this video, I have to give you a little background context first. I took a stained glass class back at the beginning of 2024, and ever since then I've been slowly accumulating the supplies that I need to do it on my own. When I texted my stained glass teacher back in July asking her for recommendations on a glass grinder, this is what she said. She's a saint. She took time out of her day to call me and talk to me about glass grinders for 20 minutes. I love you, Miss Bonnie. Then my sweet fiance Trey got me that glass grinder for Christmas, and in January, I purchased my first glass, and look at me, I'm just so happy standing there in Hobby Lobby in the middle of the aisle making my sister take pictures of me with glass, looking like a kind of psychopath. But you know what? I'm passionate about it, and the world needs more passionate people and more passion in general, so you know what? I'm helping the world with my passion for stained glass. As you can see here, I am using a pattern for this piece. I bought this pattern from Etsy from a shop called Havoc and Whimsy. Love the shop name. That is everything I aspire to be in life, havoc and whimsy, all mixed up into one. Love it. I make my first of many mistakes here by gluing the paper pattern that I cut out directly onto the glass pieces. You'll see why that's a mistake in a second. You're supposed to use plastic. Just trust me. So I'm about to start cutting, and I'm really nervous. I haven't done this in like a year. So I've been watching YouTube videos to try and refresh my memory because I'm really scared. The second of many mistakes that I made is that my pattern pieces are so far apart. You can definitely put them closer together than this. For a beginner though, you know, it's not that big of a deal, but there's less grinding to have to do if you put them closer together and have less to cut and grind down, if that makes sense. Okay, moment of truth. So scary. Whew, that's so scary. Here is some fast footage of me doing all this cutting out. And like I said earlier, I wouldn't be having to do as much cutting if I had put the pieces closer together in a more strategic way. But as it is, I was left with quite a few little glass shard remnants, and the pieces that I were left with still had pretty big edges that I had to grind down, which again, you'll see why doing this on paper was a mistake in a moment. And as a side note, all of the supplies that I used for this project were purchased from Hobby Lobby. Minus the glass grinder, which was purchased from the Inland Grinder website, I got everything from Hobby Lobby. So it's like April 25th or something like that, and I'm about to keep working on a stained glass project that I started in January. Oops, time's really getting away from me. But also I was kind of scared to use this glass grinder just because, I don't know, it kind of scares me. I've used one of these in a stained glass class before, but setting it up just felt really intimidating to me, but I got it done today. I've got all my pieces cut out, and I think I'm ready to start sanding. So let's see how it goes, shall we? I just got finished following all of these instructions, and I think that I'm ready to go now. I've got all my pieces here, my final pattern, and then this is our little setup. Let's see how it goes. Oh wait, hang on, that's not right. As a beginner who really doesn't know what she's doing, I might add here that it possibly could be good for you to wear finger protection when you're doing this, because I was, you know, thinking a couple of times that I might sand off my fingerprint or something like that and have to deal with that kind of consequence, but it didn't happen. And you know what? In my stained glass class, they didn't have us wearing hand protection either, but I just want you to be aware. Practice caution to avoid having your fingerprint removed from your hand. Okay, so progress picture. Stop hiccuping in the background of my video. So progress, I've done the entire body and this side of the wings. I still have yet to do these pieces on the other side, but I'm quite literally covered in glass dust. I wasn't expecting to have this much glass dust on me, and to be honest, I think it could just be where I'm like glittering. To be honest, it could just be where some of the glass is like iridescent and the little flakes are falling off, like flying off as I'm sanding. So that could be what that is, but it's still a little bit concerning because I feel it all over my arms, all over my face, all over like everything. And I wasn't wearing a mask, which probably wasn't the best choice because I've now inhaled a bunch of glass dust. But anyway, it's fine. I'm just gonna pretend this won't take me like another 40 minutes and we're gonna do a fun transition. Ready? So here it is, and okay, so it's done, but I'm literally covered in microscopic glass shards. So super fun. I should not have done this on carpet. I feel like I'm trapped here now. So the first mistake I mentioned to you about using paper as your pattern on the glass, yeah, you can see why I would recommend against that here, because the sander itself has water, and so there's just constantly water kind of misting on your pieces as you're sanding, and that does not go well with paper. And I had a couple of the pieces kind of turn out funky because the paper lifted and started to kind of, you know, roll away from the edges, and it messed up the way that I was sanding. So as you can see here, I am kind of having to go back in and resand certain pieces that got wonky. So yeah, take my advice. Don't use paper, use plastic. I've seen people, like here on YouTube, I've seen other stained glass artists use sticker paper, which I think could be a little bit more resilient and withstand the water. But I recommend using plastic because that's what we used at the class that I took, and it went amazing. It was great. You take the plastic and you trace it onto your paper pattern, and then you cut out the pieces from the plastic, and then you glue the plastic onto the glass and cut it out that way, and it worked great. Highly recommend that method. In the clip directly before this one, I was using rubbing alcohol to remove any of the glue residue from the pieces and remove all the little, you know, sandy glass particles. And here, after the piece is clean and dry, I am using what is called copper foil. And this is what allows the solder to stick the piece together, if that makes sense. So you want to make sure this is really even along the edges of each piece, and you rub it down, make sure there's no air pockets, no air bubbles. It's really satisfying. This was like one of my favorite steps, actually, even though it's kind of tedious because you have to do this to each and every single piece. So you get it down, you push down the edges like I'm doing here. One of the best tips that I heard from another stained glass artist here on YouTube is that when you're buying copper foil, be aware of the inside color, because if you're using clear glass at all, you're going to see whatever that inside color is, the part of the copper foil that's up against the glass. You're going to see that in the finished product, so be aware of that. And I went to Hobby Lobby, and when I was looking, I didn't realize how many color options there were for that. So, and they all look the same from the packaging, so you have to read and like be aware of that before you buy. And so that was a tip that helped me a lot, so I just wanted to voice that because that's a tip that really helped me in the beginning. Here I am using these little red tools to help seal in the edges for the copper foil. So you stick it down like I'm doing here in super fast motion, and then you rub that little tool along the edges and then along the, you know, the flat edges of each piece, and it helps flatten it all down and make it nice and secure so that when you're soldering, everything sticks together as it should. So this right here is what everything looked like once each piece had been copper foiled and put together. It's so satisfying. It's like a little puzzle. But you'll notice, if you look really closely, mistake number 4, which is there are quite a few gaps where things weren't cut out properly or things just aren't fitting together properly. And it kind of bothers me as a recovering perfectionist. But you know what? We're gonna stick with mistakes add character. It doesn't have to be perfect, okay? It doesn't have to be Here perfect. Is an overview of all the tools that I'm using for the soldering process. Again, everything was purchased from Hobby Lobby, minus the sponge, which was purchased from Dollar General. So as you can see, I have my soldering iron, I have my solder, I have my safety flux, I have my paintbrush for the safety flux. What is safety flux, you ask? Good question. It is what you need in order for the solder to stick to the copper foil, from what I understand anyway. It's very important in the process though, so you can't skip over it. I apply it very liberally all over before I start soldering, which is where you literally melt the metal and you stick the pieces together. I kind of feel like a welder, but I'm sure if anyone out there is a welder or knows welding better than me, they're gonna laugh at me. But you know, I kind of feel like a girly pop welder right now, okay? With my gloves and my metal and my, you know, safety glasses. Now that all the welders and people that know welding well Anyway, now that they've all left and probably left a hate comment, let's get back to what I'm doing here. There is a lot of technique to this. I just haven't quite got the technique down yet. Good thing about it is it's pretty forgiving, so if you mess up on an area or if there's too much solder in one area, it's pretty easy to move it around and smooth it out to where it's supposed to go. This is like one of my most favorite shots that I got because it does look so satisfying. And this was kind of after I got the gist of what I was doing with the smaller sections on the bottom. Ignore those gaps. Just pretend those gaps aren't there, okay? Thanks. This is me smoothing it out too. So a lot of it is just putting it down and then trying to smooth it back out behind because it's, I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm a beginner, but it doesn't go down smoothly the first time. So you really have to go back, and it's a lot of just going over the same sections. But I also want to say, don't go over the same section too much. You want to move around and make sure the heat is being evenly distributed, because I've heard that you can also break glass if you work too much in one area at a time. So again, yeah, just be aware and be cautious. So I'm about to do the last 3 steps, which are smoothing out everything one last time, finishing out the edges, which I'm not convinced that I did right. I did what's called a beading method in finishing these edges, which is where you take the solder and you are supposed to kind of build it up on the edges, but it seems like from the videos that I've watched, it seems like this is an easier process with pieces that have flat edges, and unfortunately there's just not a single flat edge anywhere on this piece. So it was really challenging because you have to kind of work in smaller sections and try to get it to dry before moving on. So it was complicated, and I'm not convinced that I did it correctly, but you know, again, first piece. We're not focusing on perfection. One of the very last things that I did was add my jump rings so that I could hang it. These are specifically for stained glass pieces. You can't just use any regular jump rings, so be aware of that. But I didn't get a good clip of that because my camera died, so here is the finished product instead. I kind of like it. The back has some areas that are definitely questionable. Like, yeah, my stained glass teacher would not like that. But honestly, I'm going to call it done as my first piece ever. Also, the head, I put it on backwards. See how it's iridescent? It's supposed to be iridescent on this side like all the other iridescent pieces. But you know what? It gives it character. That's what we're going to go with. So, yeah. Anyways, if you guys made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I so appreciate you. Take this as your sign to try that new hobby you've been wanting to try out, because I've said this before, but you never know until you try. Try not to look at the imperfections on this butterfly while you're at it, because like I said, there's plenty of them, but gives it character. Also, I texted my stained glass teacher to let her know that I made this, and this was her response. Y'all have an amazing whatever time of day it is for you, and I'll see you next time. Bye.